welcome to Hope is Here. I want to ask you today, are you out of order? Are you out of order? It's nothing more frustrating when, man, like you're wanting a soft drink and you go up and put your money in it, then you go and push the button and it says out of order. You feel my pain there. I think we've all been there, haven't we? But I'm not talking about vending machine. I'm talking about our lives. Sometimes we're honest, we just kind of get out of order. We just do, and it just happens from lots of different things. And I want to look at some of those things, but I want to look at Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9 as our foundation for today's program. We're going to look at out of order, and then tomorrow, instead of Food for Thought Friday, we'll do some little different thing. We're going to talk about how do I get my life back in order. Okay, so today we're going to look at the problem, the situation, the challenge, and then tomorrow we're going to look at how we can get our life back in order. And so, but Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. I love the book of Philippians. Maybe one of your favorites too. Man, there's so many good things that we can learn from that, and I'm thankful for the book of Philippians, but we're just going to look at these 5 verses in Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. It says, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considerate in all that you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. Verse 6 says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand, and His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. Then in verse 7, it goes on to say, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing. Then the God of peace will be with you. Wow, man, that is good word right there. Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. Let me ask you this, here's some things that, I'll ask you, what causes your life to get out of order? Well, you sit there and think about that, numerous things, different seasons of life. But I want to share with you 3 things that I found as I reflect on my 60 plus years of life when my life kind of gets out of order. Number 1, unwise decisions that I've made. Unwise decisions that we make, okay? We've all made them, right? I mean, it's just the fact of the matter, friends. Sometimes nobody's perfect. Only Jesus was, right? And I try to really do well, make wise decisions. But Paul said it this way in Romans chapter 7, verse 15. Paul said, what I don't understand about myself is that I decide one way, then I act another, doing the thing that I absolutely despise. Oh, friends, man, we do that, don't we? I mean, we have plans. We don't want to do unwise things, but we just do. We do. And, it's one of those things that, I took a small break from ministry, golly, it's several years ago, over a decade ago, and I just was kind of worn out, man, been a challenging season, ministry, and just said, you know what, man, I'm tired of not making money, and I want to make up for, had that flood and the bankruptcy and divorce back in the, several years before that, and so just lost everything. I had to start all over in my mid-30s, and lost everything. And I was like, and then I went to ministry and just, just didn't make any money, loved what I was doing, but was really struggling. And so a guy offered me, he said, I remember he used to be in the food business, and he owned a Culver's restaurant, and he's super guy, great guy, Christian guy. And he said, I want to offer you to be my general manager. And then, after a year's time, if you do a good job, you like, enjoy, I want to give you some ownership. And eventually I want to, retire down the road in a few years. And, I'd love for you to take over as the owner, own it. And so I just thought, you know what, man, this would be great. It's food. I mean, man, I had that supermarket, did almost $10 million a year, had 100 employees, and, had over 24,000 square feet. And this little, like 8,000 square foot restaurant. I mean, man, I could do this with my eyes closed. Oh my gosh, friends. I was miserable, absolutely miserable. Now, the people I worked with are good. The food was good. The guy was the owner that, trained me. He was awesome. So it had nothing to do with anything other than I just looked at it from dollar signs that I liked Culver's food and the chance to get some ownership. And I just thought that's maybe how God is going to restore what the Bible talks about what the locusts have eaten. And, he might have had that plan, but after I got into it 6 months, my friends, I felt like a caged animal, just, was confined to that, working, a lot of hours. And I knew that going in because I used to own my own business and as general manager. But I was just miserable. And after 6 months, I just had to go to the guy and say, man, I am so sorry. I made a mistake. But, what's great about it, God, even though it was an unwise decision I made, he, in his grace and mercy, provided a way to start teaching marketing classes at Midway University. I completed work on a master's degree in organizational communication at Western Kentucky University back in the early 90s, and done all the coursework. And a friend of mine was vice president at Midway University, and they went co-ed. And he said, we've got a lot of things that need to, a lot of people that are marketing majors. And I know with your background, with what you worked on in your master's, and with your business background before you went into ministry, I think you'd be great at that, and you're a good communicator. And so, man, I went and did it. And so God helped me out of that unwise decision I made. But sometimes, yes, it's unwise decisions we make, but God in his grace and mercy helps us. But a second thing I've seen that cause life to get out of order is unwise or selfish decisions that others make. And I think about my precious friend Sherry Matherly, that has been a guest on Hope is Here twice. We don't have many people twice, but I've had Sherry twice because it's such a powerful story. Unfortunately, I had a abusive husband. She finally left because he was suffering domestic violence. He was a bad alcoholic. She finally got the courage to leave. She had a job at Toyota so she could support herself and her daughter. And then one day she went home to get the mail and thought he was gone. She had moved out, but still waiting on the mail address to change and all that stuff, and was expecting something in the mail and didn't know he was home. And he comes out of the house, and before she could get out of the driveway, he came up running and put a gun to her, said, "You picked a fine day to die," and shot her, and then shot the gun, turned the gun on himself, and ended his life by suicide. Shot Sherry in the head. They had to airlift her from Bourbon County to UK, and the doctors came out and told her son and daughter, said, we don't know what else to do but tell you to pray. We've done all we can do. And I'm thankful that, they did pray. There was lots of us, and that's how I met Sherry. I just got ordained in the ministry in 2003 and was on staff at Northeast Christian Church, and I was part of somebody who was called to go to the hospital and pray for her, and went, and thankful that she is alive today. But she can't drive anymore. She couldn't work at Toyota, and so her life got out of order because of a selfish decision that somebody else made. But she's a testimony. God still used it. She's a testimony. She inspires me, and she supports this ministry with prayers, encouragement, and texts, and it means so much for me when I get it from Sherry. And she financially supports this ministry every year, and so lives on a fixed income, and yet she gives to her church, but she also goes above and beyond with her tithe to her church and supports Hope is Here ministry each year. And just so thankful for Sherry. But her life has got out of order because of a selfish decision that a former alcoholic, domestic abusive husband did. And then the third thing that sometimes causes their life to get out of order is just, life happens. Life happens. My own example is the flood. You know that story. Um, if you want listen to Hope Is Here at all, we celebrate over 8 years, and it just started raining. It rained in the end of Kentucky, March 1st, 1997, and it didn't stop raining for 24 hours. It resulted in a flood. And there hadn't been a flood in 80, I think it was 86 years, over 80 years for sure, and had every type of insurance except for flood insurance, and wound up having to file bankruptcy. Later, eventually lost my business, my home, because I put it up for the home for the business, and so went through an unexpected divorce. I mean, just life happens, friends. You get a cancer diagnosis. Just life happens. Sometimes life just gets out of order, and it's because of, just life happens. Just uncontrollable things happen sometimes, and we all have got stories, friends. As Job said, if you've been a follower of Jesus and read the book, most of us know about Job, and I love that Job, we said that, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. But I'm so thankful Job said, though he slay me, yet I will trust in him. And I'm so thankful for that. But what I've really learned the most as I reflect on my 60 years of life, what causes our life to get out of the order. I talked about that I wound up teaching at Midway University for 3 years, marketing classes as an adjunct professor, and I loved it. Okay. But what I've really learned about what caused our life to get out of order, quite often it's a combination of all the above. I'd give multiple choice tests, A, B, C, or D, all the above. Well, in this case, I found, and mine was 60 years, or now it is 60 years of life. It's official, not all. I'm 60, okay? Is that our life gets out of order by unwise decisions we make, by unwise or selfish decisions that others make, and 3, because life just happens. And, so a lot of times it can be a combination of all 3 of those, okay? And here's the deal, friends. You know what? We can learn from the past, but we got to quit trying to live there or expect to understand everything. When life gets out of order, friends, we just can't do that. Because, I found that Romans chapter 8, verse 28 is true. That all things work together for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Oh, I'm so thankful for that. And friends, that I can stand on that promise today. And here's what I know, friends. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 and 9 says, God says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways, declares the Lord. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so are my thoughts and my ways higher than your thoughts and your ways. And I can tell you, almost 25 years later since that flood, okay, that it's been over 25 years now, but 25 years since the bankruptcy, okay, that, what? That's true. His thoughts are not my thoughts, his ways, but they all work for good. And so I know, friends, when life gets out of order, we have worry, we have anxiety, we can have a lack of peace, we can have feelings of being overwhelmed, we can have health challenges like blood pressure, high blood pressure, headaches, illnesses, and it can even, unfortunately, sometimes lead to addictions like gambling and pornography and alcohol and things that just are substitute for God to numb the pain. But you know what, friends? I'm so thankful that God specializes in helping us when our lives get out of order, and that he is in the restoration business. And so tomorrow I'm going to look at how we can get our life back in order. And so, man, I hope if you've been blessed by this program that you'll share it with somebody else. I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And simply Hope Is Here. My name, Greg Horn, Horn. And then I hope you'll be back with us again tomorrow as we look at how do I get my life in order. My name's Greg Horn, and this is Hope Is Here.